and welcome to this week's episode of the Making It in Asheville podcast. This is your podcast for all things Asheville entrepreneurs, creators, makers, community leaders. Each week we sit down on this podcast and we ask someone from the community what they are making and how they are making it in Asheville so that you can see the many ways that people are making it right here in Asheville. And this week we have a very special guest, a guest that I'm so excited. I feel like I've read more words from this guest than any guest in the 80-something episodes that we've had so far. Brook Bolen works at Avl Today. And if you don't know Avl Today, well, we're going to get into it in this episode, but you should. It is like, Reddit is the front page of the internet. I think like Avl Today is the front page of Asheville. And so each morning we open up Sarah and I, our inboxes, and we read Avl Today, and we find out what's going on in the city. And so it is so exciting to have Brook here to talk through her story, tell us a little bit more about what's going on at Avl Today. Brook, can you please say hello and introduce yourself to the podcast?
Hey, absolutely. It is an honor to be here. I'm so super excited. My name is Brook Bolen. I'm an editor with Avl Today. And as you were mentioning, we do a daily newsletter Monday through Friday. We aggregate local news, and we also include original content in every newsletter. And it tickles my soul that you have read more of my words than anybody's. That's just like the greatest thing I've heard today and in a minute. And I can't wait to tell all my friends that you said that. I'm an editor with Avl Today, and I'm constantly trying to stay abreast of what is going on in our beautiful little mountain town.
And you, let me just say, you do an excellent job of that. It is some people's, in episodes in the past, we talk about like first languages and the way that people will communicate. Thinking back to the episode with Coco, where it's like, is your first language dance? Is it design? Is it photography? What is your first language? It is not easy to write well, to write clearly, to write concisely, to write where there's a clarity that there was a human that put those words on the page. And every morning there's so much clarity and so much humanity. And so, congratulations. You and the team do a wonderful job. How big is this team? Because the content is prolific. And Monday to Friday, it doesn't stop. I mean, it's a proper modern day news room, it seems, but it doesn't seem like it's a big team.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just the two of us, generally speaking. We do have an intern right now, and goodness gracious, thank goodness for her, because she is a lifesaver a lot of the time. But yeah, it's a 2-person team job. One of us will write the newsletter for the next day while the other one handles the inbox and the social media. Wow. And it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's always going. It's fast paced, and there's honestly never a dull moment.
I hear that, and I believe it. So let's talk about Avl Today. Let's assume that someone doesn't know. What is Avl Today?
We are a hyper local news source. Mm-hmm. So we aggregate the news, and we also curate it. So just because, a major news company that's local or even national mentions us, we don't necessarily include that unless we think that it's going to be relevant to our readers. So, I am a Western North Carolina native, born and bred, and my new co-editor is a Floridian. Which I do not hold this against her.
I was going to say.
I know when I see her, she's going to be like, "Really, you said that?" No, but she's lived here for several years, and so together she and I work to create this newsletter where we try to really offer up a balance of news that we think is going to be relevant for our community. So we always want to keep people informed, but we also want to be really mindful of the news that we're sharing. So we try to stay positive with it, and always offer our readers. One of the things that I really love about the Asheville market is that people are very civic minded, and they want to be involved in different causes. And so we always try to give our readers the opportunity to pursue ways to support causes and organizations that they're interested in. So that's I feel like I may have lost where I was going with that, but that's what we do, and that's what we try to do every day.
And and I'll put a caveat or a extra parameter on it. And it seems that you're email first, right? So as far as the medium, the way that you are communicating most often is in email. You also have an incredible website loaded with resources, but first and foremost, when people think of where they should store you in their mind, it's in their email inbox.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our newsletter goes out. We're owned by a company called 6 a.m., which is named after the fact that our newsletters go out at 6 a.m.
Great name.
So I know before I started working here, when I just was a subscriber and just somebody that just read the daily newsletter, it was always the highlight of my morning. You know, it was my little alone time before my daughter wakes up, and I get to have my coffee and find out what's going on in the day. And so that's one thing that I really love about it, is that we have so many readers tell us, you know, I start my day with you and you help me kind of plan my day and plan my week out. And so I really love, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I really love, you know, being able to share that coffee time with people. Cause I don't know about y'all, but I wake up and I'm like, I need coffee. I go to bed thinking about coffee. I wake up thinking about coffee. I need my coffee. And so then I'm getting my news, and it's just this beautiful little, you know, we try to be, you know, 5 minutes or less, like just the high points of what people need, get it in, get it done, you know, get you on your day. And
I mean, it's a lot, but it's written in such a way that it's highly digestible, right? So I work with like sales folk, and oftentimes one of the first, biggest, most important thing to coach through is like what an email should look like if you want someone to read it, right? And an email should not look like paragraphs of text. It should have headers. It should have bullets. There should be, you know, like it's skimmable. And then if I want to stop and slow down, I can. And so you have so much content, so much information packed in, you said 5 minutes. I think that's fair. And if you wanted to read every single word and like scrutinize, it might be 6 minutes. But like you could probably just fly through, you know, you could fly through, click on a couple links that you want, and then you're off to the races. Enjoy your coffee. Today's going to be a good day. How many other 6 a.m. cities are there?
Let's see. We have 9, I believe. We just launched a new market in Nashville.
Cool.
And we are about to open another one in Richmond, Virginia.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very exciting to see the way we're spreading.
So I mean, the model seems to be working. I've believed in hyperlocal. I think that in a very commoditized world, right, the answer is to be more specific, right? To kind of carve out a little niche and build relationships where people tend to think in transactions. And so how long have you been working on the Asheville AVL Today?
Let's see. I started here it's about a year and a half, I think.
Wow.
Started in November of 2019. Yeah. And
it's just been a sprint since, because that's like, you know, 2 months later, a pandemic started. Yeah, for real. Yeah, it was a really interesting time to really get my feet under me and to see the way that our whole market has shifted. You know, like we've all gone remote, and we've all really had to, when the pandemic was, you know, last year when the pandemic was really, really like hardcore happening, we all really had to shift and shift so much of our focus on news and like build a whole website dedicated to coronavirus information, you know, to keep up with closures and, you know, everything that was happening. And it was a lot. And I'm really proud of how we did it and how the whole company and all my other sister markets did. Yeah. So help us get a sense of what a day looks like in the modern newsroom, right? I imagine people are sending at this point tons of, hey, can you post about this? I'm opening this. We're launching this. I need help with this into your inbox. So a lot of it sounds like it might be triage, but like what does a day look like for you at AVL Today?
You know, like I said before, it's always going really fast, and we do get a ton of emails, and we respond to all our emails.
Wow.
So whoever the social editor is on that day, they're the ones handling the inbox, and there's a lot of responding to do. But a typical day will start about officially at 9, but we usually start earlier. And all the editors and all the markets will have a meeting, talk about kind of if there's any shared content that we're going to be running across markets. Like today is National Sibling Day. And so several markets ran the same piece about introducing their readers to the different cities that we have. So like, a reader in Columbia, South Carolina would be able to read about Chattanooga and Asheville and, all the sister markets. And then we just kind of spend all day going through what we're going to put in the next day's newsletter, what can wait, what cannot wait. And then the bulk of it is really going to be like what our original content is. Because the rest of the news information that we include, that we call our news notes, those are the ones that we aggregate from different media sources. But the I think the main focus is on the original content that we produce. So, and then depending on, like we might have a plan for what we're going to do, but then if some breaking news happens, then we have to shelve it and jump on that really quick to get that ready to go at 6 a.m. and, to go out by 6 a.m. the next morning. So it's hectic and it's fun and it's exciting and it's a lot of work and it's just, something I feel really proud of and really happy to be a part of.
What time do you target having the next day's email scheduled?
Scheduled?
Is it scheduled, or is someone up at 5:30 finalizing setting?
Well, I'm up at 5:30, but I'm usually just having coffee then. We schedule it to go out at 6 a.m. every day. So, but like, for instance, like a couple of weeks ago when the city council met to discuss what the fate of the Vance Monument was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
I had to stay up, I had to stay up and listen to that and comb through that and get that written and then get it edited and then get it scheduled. And, that was a really late night for me. I think I was up until like 11 or so.
Wow.
With my teammate, making sure, going behind me, editing, making sure I got all my facts straight, making sure I didn't, put a weird emoji somewhere, just. Yeah. So, some days are like a 9 to 5 and some days are really like a 9 to 9,
yeah.
It just depends.
Wow. So I'm going to say 5 unless it's crazy, which is that's a lot. That's a lot, full stop. And then, what tools, like how are you, so you're saying that you're juggling back and forth between a content focused day and I'll call it, so is it the other role like social media focused?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So bouncing back and forth, I imagine there's opportunities for things to fall between the cracks. Are you living in like a Asana or a Trello or where do your news article, live and you make selections? What kind of tool, organization system might you run this seemingly incredibly complex system off of?
We did recently start using Asana.
Okay.
So that's really helpful. We use a MailChimp to schedule our newsletter. I know we're fixing to shift into a different, is that a content management system?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, whatever techie
platform
website,
for email. Yeah. It seems like you guys are juicing MailChimp for probably as much as it's capable of right now. The one thing is that, it seems to me is that it would be a single, campaign email sent daily versus like a very complex email automation system like an e-commerce brand might have. So it seems like you, as far as my guess is concerned, MailChimp solved for what you needed for a while, but once you're starting to think about different cities participating and doing more complex marketing things, I'd be interested to see where you go next.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think that the thing that we're going to move to is called sail through.
Yeah.
We haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I don't know much about it. They just say it's supposed to be like more efficient and easier to use than MailChimp. So
I have no firsthand experience, but I've been on that page a lot. It looks very clean.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so Asana, are you Slack? We talked about Slack slightly before the call. Seems like you might be live chatting all day with a remote team.
Oh yeah. We are all in constant contact on Slack because, even though the markets are different, we all create a daily newsletter. We all run into similar problems. And so, yeah, every market we are talking all day long on Slack.
Wow.
Which is really helpful.
Yeah. And for the paid media, paid advertisement, is that like what roles are owned or responsibilities are like HQ handles that, right? Like, versus or your responsibilities for your market?
Can you rephrase that?
Yeah. So like I imagine that there's some sort of efficiencies that you mentioned potentially that there might be like an edit. If like a single editor worked for 6 a.m. and they helped clarify content or give you a thumbs up, like what are there any roles that are from that are managed by 6 a.m. versus roles that you have for your team?
I think that if I'm understanding you correctly, I think that they're all managed by 6 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a great question. So I guess what I'm what I was attempting to ask is that you all are now like so I would say ingrained in the average Asheville person's life that you're doing cool things in your email, like the marketer sales brain that I have. I'm like, ooh, refer a friend, like get a coffee mug. That's neat, right? Like, and then I'm like, oh, you could have this banner headline, right, as like an advertising location. Ooh, that's neat. And I'm wondering, is that also on your plate as like a responsibility?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No, thank goodness. No.
I was going to say, like, that seems like those are very different parts of a brain to have to handle all of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I'm so thankful that that's not something I have to handle. All I'm responsible for is producing content, in the newsletter and on the website and on social media pages.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm very happy I don't have to do any sort of money wrangling or any of that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, and then I think that that's a perfect place to be. This is where we are now. How did this happen? Where did this come from? Have you always had a blog? What are the steps that got you into this role in November of 2019?
Well, let's see. So I grew up in Lenoir, North Carolina, which is a couple counties east of here. At the foot of, I grew up at the foot of Grandfather Mountain, and I always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really know how to do that. Everybody in my family, I've come from a very working class background. Lots of mechanics, my daddy laid carpet for a living. My mama works at Walmart. When I was growing up, my parents owned a floor covering business in town. And so my daddy did carpet and my mama sold it. And my parents were always telling me they wanted me to take over. And I was like, that's rich. That ain't happening. So I want to go to college, and so I went to UNC Asheville and I majored in sociology and women's studies. And I started dating a guy whose sister was like a professor and his stepdaddy was a professor. And I thought, oh, cool, I'll be an academic because I love school and I love this and it'll be great. And then I get there and it just wasn't going to be my scene. I figured that out pretty quick. But but I knew I got to have some writing experience, and that was really cool. But it was hard for me because I didn't have it. There was no frame of reference for me when I looked at my family for how to navigate college. You know, like I did great with my grades and I loved classes, but I didn't have the support network or the background of like, it was just really foreign for my family. They didn't understand how to support me, and I didn't understand, you know, what all I might need. I just knew that I wanted to be there. And so once I graduated from UNC Asheville and I thought that I was going to be an academic, I went to NC State for a hot second, and that was not going to, me and Raleigh didn't get along. And so then I figured out that I should go to a different graduate school. So I went to Georgia State and I pursued my master's in women's studies. And I had some family problems and I wound up leaving before I finished my degree, and I moved back home to take care of my mama who had gotten really sick. And so I don't remember how, sometime in graduate school, somebody told me about freelance writing. And I remember I was like, people will pay you to write things. And it just kind of blew my mind. And I worked as a freelancer for probably 15 years. And if you could write it, I have written it. I've done copywriting. I've done grant writing. And I think when you, at least for me, when you're able to make money doing something that you want to do, you don't really care. I didn't care what I was writing about. I just wanted to write. And I felt really privileged to be able to do that. And I moved to Fancy Gap, Virginia, which is where my daddy's from, which is a tiny little town across the North Carolina line. My husband and we had a daughter, and Atlanta is incredibly expensive, and I lost my job. And so my daddy said, well, why don't you go live in your granddaddy's trailer? It's empty. And I said, all right, you know, it can't beat the rent. It's free. And so we went and we lived there for a year and a half. And that's when I came across a job posting for assistant editor for WNC magazine. And I remember I was so pumped when I saw it on my phone. I remember going out in the living room and holding it up and showing it to my husband and being like, this is my job. Like, this is my job. And I applied for it and I got that job and I loved it. And I was there for almost 2 years. And that's when I saw the job call for Avl Today. And I called, I immediately emailed the editor, my old co-editor, Allie McGee at the time. She was there. And I was like, yo, I saw this job posting in your email newsletter today. And I got to get this job. Like, give me the deets. And so she was like, yeah, apply, whatever. And so I applied and interviewed and I wanted to work at Avl Today in part so badly because Allie had actually been a freelance writer for me when I worked at WNC magazine. And I just thought she was the smartest, coolest, I'm still today still so crushed out on her because she's so smart and she's just kind of like everything I want to be when I grow up. And I was like, I need to work with this girl. And so I got to do that for a year and change. And it was just amazing and wonderful. And I learned so much from her and yeah, she's my friend and she's great. And that's how I got this job. Long story short, I'm sorry.
No, that was, so I couldn't it was a thrill ride. I couldn't ask for you to stop at any point. But there are so many points that I have questions about. And I think through that, there was a single thread of loving to write. It might be hard to ask someone who loves to write to answer this out loud, perhaps without thinking about it. But what can you put words to why writing? What about the medium? What about the practice? Why does it mean so much to you?
I think that it's my way of being creative. I can't dance. so I could never like express myself that way. I can't paint. I don't have those skills, but damn, I can put a damn word down, you know, and I love it. And that's how I can express myself. That it means something to me. And also when I was, my granddaddy was illiterate. I mean, he could read like a phone book a little bit, but like I can remember being little and my granddaddy would bring over a phone book and say, what's this say? What's his address or whatever? And, my granddaddy couldn't read hardly at all. And when I was in graduate school, I learned, I just kind of got introduced to all this stuff, all these theories and ideas and fancy stuff that doesn't really exist for working class kids. And I remember I had a professor that said, like, if you can't explain a topic or a theory or something, if you can't figure out how to explain that in a way that, like, maybe your grandmother could understand, then you don't have any business writing about it. And just thinking about like people like my granddaddy who have literacy problems, just being able to make information accessible to them means a lot to me. And so when you said that, we write really clearly, that's a huge compliment to me. That means a ton to me, because that's a way to communicate with people. And everybody can't understand my accent, but everybody can understand my writing. You know what I mean?
I think, well, yes, they can definitely understand your writing. I'll go that way. Definitely understand your writing. And I agree with you. There's a couple tools that I've used in the past. Grammarly, you might want to take it or leave it, especially as a professional. But have you heard of the Hemingway app or the Hemingway writer? So we'll find the link. We'll put it in the show notes. But the concept is that Hemingway wrote to like a third grade literacy level, right? Like it was intentional. It was present tense. It was no adverbs or adjectives. I don't even know, right? Like that's not how my mind doesn't work in grammar. But no lees. You didn't say lee. You said the better version of the verb. Like aggressively, he would just, is not how he would say it. Or very, you don't say very something. You say a simple word. And so anyway, there's an app that'll take your writing and tell you that you are writing with too much complexity. Your sentences are too long. Your word choice is strange, or you're trying too hard. And the goal would be to lower your reading competency that is required to understand what you're saying. And so it is truly probably my best compliment that I can give someone is that you write very simply. Like I think of Paulo Coelho, like the Alchemist. Part of the reason why people love that book is because everyone can follow that book. Like every sentence is and it's translated, which blows my mind. So how beautifully was it written in the first language? But it's like part of the beauty of The Alchemist is that every sentence is so stinking simple and direct. And so to have that gift is a superpower, and it is not like bestowed upon you from the heavens. It takes a lot of time and practice. And so what you said 15 years of freelance writing, but do you write for fun? Do you journal? What does your writing practice look like?
Yeah, I do journal. I have, I think probably like every writer in the world, I've got my memoir that's just trying to rip its way out of my person. Sure. And I have been writing on that very slowly. But normally I will do my own personal writing in the evenings once I get my daughter in bed and try to take like an hour or so, maybe sit here and have a glass of wine. And the hardest thing I think is giving yourself permission to be crappy, When you first it's so hard to get started because even if nobody else is reading what you're writing, and you're just trying to get started and you're tapping and you're going, God, Brooke, that is just garbage. Like just shutting yourself up long enough to barf it out and then you can go back and clean it up. That's still the hardest thing for me at work too. Like I'll sit there and fart around for 15 minutes trying to get my intro right, and then I'll just be like, all right, just get it down, and then you can come back to it and clean it up later. Everybody does this. You don't suck. That's like my daily work mantra, It's a glamorous job.
No, I love it. And I think that you're pointing to something that is so true, and it transcends writing, but is maybe even stronger in writing. A truism that I've heard and I echo is that no one has speaker's block. Somebody, you might stutter, right? That might be a way that speaker's block shows up for individuals. But if I asked you, like if I said I don't understand what you're saying, like happened a couple minutes ago when I was trying to ask about advertising, I have another way to say it. Give me a second, I'll circle back around, we'll do it again. And so like the idea of writer's block is really just you're doing two parts of the writing process at the same time. You're writing and you're editing, and you shouldn't do those two at the same time. Right?
Yeah. I mean, they're totally separate. They're best friends, but they each have, they're different people.
Yeah. Or writing and critiquing. Ugh. And so, do you have you, it seems like it's a daily practice, right? It is like hygiene. You need to practice it daily. But do you have anything other than you don't suck, just keep going, like put the words down? Any tips to an aspiring writer or to writers who identify as having writer's block more often than not?
I think that another thing that really helps my writing, and I think it helps writers in general, is reading. Consuming other written words is really helpful because it inspires you. It helps you see that it can be done. Other people do it. And, it helps you kind of figure out where you want to go or see. So, sometimes if you have something that you want to write about, you can get so stuck in your head that you can't figure out. There's multiple ways you could go with it, but you can't figure out which direction. And I feel like when you are a reader, it's easier for you to see how other people are kind of journeying through their writing. You know what I mean? And that helps open up, at least for me, it helps open up my mind to be like, oh, I could frame it like that. Or, I like how this writer did this by including this sort of example that would apply to me. So I think that reading a lot is really, really helpful to make you a good writer. I think writing is obviously vital. And I think that just trying to be gentle with yourself is really helpful, because I don't know any writers that aren't big, sensitive, tender babies. I'm the biggest baby on earth. And when I make a mistake in the newsletter and somebody writes in to tell me about it, it kills my soul. But, I'm a human. I'm a person. I'm going to make mistakes. As much as it just kills me, it's still going to happen. So I just try to be like, give myself some grace and just try to pump myself up, put on some Earth, Wind and Fire, some Elvis Costello or something, some Wu-Tang Clan, like give me some music, pump me up, help me believe in myself. And, a lot of times I kind of have a little, like an alias when, if I'm having a really hard day, Brook can't do this, but, Allison can. She is unstoppable. So.
People, press rewind for twice. 2 30-second jumps will get you back to the beginning of that. I'm fired up, and I totally agree with what you're talking about. We don't send as many emails as y'all, and I am not a writer in any professional sense. And when we get feedback like there were typos, I'm just like, thank you for thank you for reading. And thank you for commenting and caring enough to let me know that you caught typos. But I am all about the alter ego, the second persona, the second identity that you slip into when it's go time. I think that is, it probably sounds, silly to some, but it is a real way to unlock the next level of either output or quality, and it's as simple as playing a character for the next 25 minutes to just beast through this draft. Speaking of drafts, it's a concept is when you talk about having multiple routes to the conclusion, or to deliver content in any given ways, material. Will you write it in multiple versions and just pick one that is the best afterward, or are you at a point now where you're like, you think about it for a second and you're like, oh, option C is the right way, let me do it?
Both.
Okay.
And it really just depends on how much time we have in a given day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, we have to get a newsletter out, and that's good and bad, like it's helpful in a way to be like, what, this just has to get done. Yeah. And it's not perfect, and it's not my favorite thing I've ever written, but it's not inaccurate. It's not wrong. It just might not be what I think is the best thing I ever did. And I still have to put it out there, and I still have to stand behind it. I mean, fortunately I've never backed myself into a corner where I had to put a newsletter out that I felt just awful about.
Yeah.
But, like every convo, that's what we call our original content, the bulk, like the top of the newsletter.
Sure.
Every convo is not going to be my favorite convo. Every convo is not going to be the best convo I did, but I just have to live with that. And that's what we do. Yeah.
I call that creativity by constraint, right? Like there's something to be said about making a promise to the universe, and y'all are special because if your email wasn't in someone's inbox, they'd be like, is everything, like, what happened? Is today a holiday? Like, what, why isn't it there? That's not common, right? For the average business owner's email newsletter, no one's really waiting, but that's the goal, right? Like, there are a couple newsletters that I can think of that are either daily or, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that if it didn't show up, I like check to see if it's in the spam filter. Most not. So the fact that I think that people would care if yours didn't get out says something. But that constraint of saying, every day at 6 a.m., Monday to Friday, something gets published is, I think in some ways freeing. I think that's seems like it would be a lot easier. A lot less excuses happen for why something didn't go out if you have a setup like that versus, oh, well, it's just not ready yet. Like I think there are a lot of artists who will lean into it's not ready for, public eyes, or, we're still mastering, right? A musician might say it still needs a little bit of mastering. I need to get the levels different. And I'm like, put it out there. Like, someone's going to love it. Yeah. And Ryan Holiday, does that name mean anything to you as an author? Wrote a bunch of books on Stoicism, among other concepts, but he wrote a book called The Perennial Bestseller, or something similar to that, and The Perennial Seller. And the idea is that the best thing you can do for this book, this email, is write a good next email. Yeah. Write a good next book. You want to sell this book? Write another book. And it speaks to the idea of just like be prolific in content, and it's a net good, and you are prolific in content.
Thank you. Yes, it is true.
and so, your writing practice happens at night. Anything that particularly stands out as shaping you as the writer that you are today? Oh, well, I mean, absolutely my childhood. I just loved, I was a big bookworm. I loved, this is also going to sound cheesy, but you can go anywhere in a book. If you are a little poor girl whose family never takes vacations, and you've never left the country, and you haven't done all these things that your friends have done, and
you just don't know, like I've learned so much through reading. I've experienced things. I know about things that other people know about because they got to go and I read about it. So absolutely that. And just I just feel like when you can just create a whole new world, you can create any world when you write. And I just love that. And yeah, so I think just growing up, being a little girl in the mountains, wanting to do big things, but not having the means to do that, that really shaped me.
Any particular books, writers, authors,
oh wow,
characters?
Bell Hooks, I love. She is a feminist theorist. Dorothy Allison, who wrote Bastard Out of Carolina. Alice Walker, also not the most uplifting topic, but absolutely trauma, like childhood trauma, informed my worldview and my work and what I want to write about. And I think that's a thread that you can see in the writers that I really love and enjoy as well. I don't know if y'all have read Bastard Out of Carolina or The Color Purple. Those are two of my absolute favorite books of all time that I've read and will reread forever.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and what's his face? There's a Southern, Henry Shucks. I can't think of his name. I'm trying to find his book on my
bookshelf. That's how my mind works as well. I gotta like look to the bookshelf to recall certain things. Powerful. So literature, right? So or that's not all, those aren't all literature authors. Some of those are nonfiction and real topics. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bell Hooks is, like an academic feminist womanist theorist. I read a lot of her work in graduate school and, I think that her work was really influential to me because she's all about like liberation, through teaching, through writing, like helping people be themselves and be free to be themselves. Obviously not looking at like social structures and things that help oppress people, but just looking at it at the personal level. That's really influential. And I think that that's also something that I strive to do in my writing. I've written a lot personally about like my experiences with postpartum depression, and had so many women reach out to me and thank me for sharing my struggles and them tell me about theirs, and I think that when you're lonely, you can really find connection through reading other people's work. And that's another thing I really love about being a writer and love about writing and reading is that's just a great way to find a community of people, whether it's real, like whether it's in real life or not, you're still like making that connection that's really meaningful.
And I feel like it's underscored in a pandemic where you might have been some people's only connection that was consistent and call it loosely normal from before the pandemic, right? Like you mentioned early days of the pandemic being particularly, I don't know what the word choice we had earlier, but like bad. When Sarah and I weren't sure what was going on, we didn't really do anything. We didn't leave the apartment. We washed vegetables as they, and boxes of stuff, sanitized it because it was so unsure. And to be, a friend or something like an internet friend to so many every morning, that's crazy. That's like a very real responsibility as well as opportunity. I'm wondering, last year was a hard year for a lot of reasons. How did your voice grow last year? Did the way that you write, the way that you think about writing change? It seemed to be like one of the more complex years to be a journalist. But that's just me assuming.
That's a really great question. I don't know if it changed or if I just felt like I developed a different relationship with it. It was really hard. Like, I was working at home and also like trying to make sure that my child doesn't flunk out of virtual first grade or set the house on fire or choke on a chicken bone or whatever, number of catastrophes can happen when you have a small child. So I was doing that. And then the weight of the news just, that was really hard on us as, cause we have to maintain these numbers for people, so we have to like tell you every day how many people died. That is heavy and hard, and people are writing in to you more than normal. And that's one really beautiful thing about this position and about what we do is we do have like real friends that we've met through our readers, like we have lunch with some of our readers. We know them. They share their lives with us in emails and stuff. And that's beautiful. And it's hard. And it's to have so many people write in and say, I'm going to lose my job or I'm going to lose my house. Do you have any leads for me about, food banks or loans or whatever? That was really, really heavy and really, really hard to deal with, and definitely had a lot of days where, I just kind of was working from my bed and I would just sit there and be like, I got to take 10 and just sob, because it hurts your heart when you know that there's so much pain out there, but then by the same token, it's beautiful because you have people, write in and tell you about things that you did that really helped them. There was an older man who wrote in and asked us where he could get a haircut, like a COVID safe haircut, and I looked up some places and sent him to him, and he wrote back and sent us a picture of his, fresh haircut. And he's like, I haven't had a haircut in 9 months and, I feel like a new man. And so like when you can really help people and you feel like you have really touched them in some way, I think that is just, I feel so lucky to be able to do that. I think that's so beautiful. And yeah,
it is a special thing. And even in the darkest moments, it seemed that you always, the energy in the emails, though at moments perhaps solemn, was always optimistic. Is that intentional? Is that a energy that you choose? Am I wrong in making that statement? How do you try and show up? What is the tone that you try and deliver these emails with?
Definitely try to be optimistic and maintain positivity wherever possible, and I have definitely written things in the newsletter, especially at the very end where we can really kind of talk to people, and I remember I had one really bad day and Allie had said like, what do you want to say? What are you going to do this weekend? And cause I think it was a Thursday newsletter going out for Friday morning. And, and she was like, I'm going to say that I'm going to work on my garden or whatever, and I was having a really terrible day. And I was like, I'm going to fill up my bathtub with chemist gin and just drink my way out of it. And I think we did have I had one person write in and be like, Brooke, are you okay? I was like, I was just having a really bad day. I was trying to play it off like a joke, but definitely trying to be mindful and conscious of the fact that this has been a time of just awful loss for so many people. And it can be very challenging to try to bring some levity but also recognize the just wild severity of the situation.
Yeah.
That's a fine line.
Yeah. And I imagine y'all have transcended any single identity as a readership, right? Like, not your audience does not, I imagine, all look the same, though you say whatever you want, whatever the demographics of Asheville are. I imagine your readership has to be one of the closest to mirror Asheville's demographics. That's a guess. And so that's a lot of potential personality types that could read the same sentence or paragraph and get very different responses from those folks. And so I'm imagining has pushback in one way or another, or you're not being hard enough, or you're not, have you tried to toe a line? Has that been challenging? It seems like it would be. It's been challenging for us to try and, we are intentional about our optimism. We are, out of towners. We showed up and we said we had an idea and we wanted to try it, and we thought it'd be a great way, if nothing else, to meet people. And it seems like it's also a great way to build community and champion folks in the community. Heard a couple times, not many times, but a couple times, that we're looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't know if it's necessarily my responsibility to look at it in any other way, but I'm wondering, how has that shown up in your world in a year where pandemic, amongst many trying moments for a country and for a community locally, it seems like a burden that had to be hard to carry.
It has absolutely been challenging at times, because we do encourage people to write into us and share their thoughts with us, and we welcome that. And as much as we try, we're not gonna make everybody happy all the time. So it is absolutely a challenge at times, but it is also, I think, when you can step back and not take criticism personally and try to hear what people, like you said, like some people will be like, you're not hard enough about this, or you're too soft about this. That can be difficult to hear, but if you can get out of your feelings about it and not take it personally, and realize that it's not like somebody's not being like, Brooke, you suck. Then I kind of go, well, like, what can I learn from what you're trying to say to me? Whether I agree with your feedback about my product or not, you're trying to convey something to me. What can I learn from that exchange, and how can I take that and help me be better? And some days it ain't gonna happen, And some days, you step away and you're like, wow, I feel like I really learned what this person meant when they said this. So I think to be able to get to the point where you can try to figure out what the value in that comment is, or what you can learn from that, and how you can take that and make yourself better.
Yeah.
Make a better product for more people. That's what I try to do. And sure. I don't always succeed, unfortunately, but
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely aspirational, and I think that is it takes reps. I mean, even if someone did say, hey, you specifically suck, to me, right, like that seems like a them problem, or that's what, I don't know what's going on in that person's world, that's exactly how they feel, or that is their choice for right now, how they want to communicate how they're feeling or what they're thinking. And so I imagine not many people are saying you specifically suck, but if they did, it seems like there's a lot of room to unpack those emotions. Anywho, I don't think that you suck. I think that you do an exceptional job. When when thinking about the growth in AVL Today in your time, and it seems like there are some new initiatives or new efforts. What is happening that's new and exciting? What are you thinking about? Right, we're in April now. So, oh my goodness! So 2021 is well underway. What are you thinking about for this year?
Goodness. Well, absolutely. Like trying to, I think that I'm doing it with our readers. Like I'm figuring out how to get back in the world, just like my readers are.
Yeah.
Like I got my first COVID vaccine today. So I think our collective trauma over this last year is so widespread, and I see it everywhere and in so many people that I talk to. And I think that we're all just trying to figure out how to create a new normal, because we're never going to go back to what we were. And I'm thankful, and I know that we all are, like we're moving out of this awful sort of hold that we were in, with quarantine and being on lockdown and all this stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out how to emerge back into the world and keep my fingers on how other people are doing that, and for things that are going to be interesting for my readers, and figure out how to share that with them. Because we don't make medical advice, and we have like text in our newsletter that says, when we include our calendar events, like it's up to y'all if y'all feel comfortable going to this in-person event, so just I think that I feel like I am just trying to figure out how to get back out into the world. And I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. Because like when I first started working at AVL Today before the pandemic, it was, we were always out doing stuff, going places, seeing stuff, being really active in the community.
Yeah.
And the
first ones to try a new restaurant, first ones to go to the new place, first ones, like it was amazing. It was incredible. And it still is. It's incredible that the quality stayed exactly where it was through a pandemic. And so, yeah, I imagine figuring out what version, I'll call it 3 in your world will look like.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I am. And I can't believe it's April either. Just you saying that just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah. I think about the world, about 13 weeks at a time, a quarter at a time. And I cannot believe that we're in the second 13-week stretch of this year. It really doesn't make sense. What about personal? Like where what do you have? So you have a child, right? And you're writing every day against the clock to put something into the world. When you have time, it sounds like you're drinking some gin. If you're not on the YouTube channel, you're keeping plants alive. What do you do when not writing?
When I'm not writing, I am cooking or eating, because I have a tapeworm, and I'm always thinking about my next meal. Always, like I'm going, man, I'm a dig into that bag of salt and vinegar chips, get me some Roots hummus. When we're done here, I'm gonna grub. So I'm always thinking about food. I'm always hanging out with my 2 rescue dogs, who I love so much.
Did you get them locally?
I got my mama found my one dog at the Walmart in Hickory when she was a puppy and brought her to me. And then my other dog I adopted from Brother Wolf. So,
cool. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm always around my dogs, and I'm always cooking, and I'm always eating, or I'm out, walking or hiking or biking or doing some active stuff. So I don't just sit around and vibrate with nerves. Get that energy out.
Heard. I asked this question on most conversations, It is a word association. You can answer with a single word or take the mic and run with it. But
Okay.
you have a Venn diagram, Asheville, community. What's going on in the middle? What do you think about?
Oh, wow. I think about food. I think about politics. I think about the environment. Is that, am I answering this correctly? Okay.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay, you said diagram, and I got kind of nervous because I failed algebra in high school. It's the only subject I ever failed, and so when people give me math things, I start being like, I'm gonna mess this up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I also think about the artists. You know, we have just such a ridiculously talented art scene here. So many awesome little independent people doing amazing stuff, making stuff. That's what I think about. I think it's the thing that I love the best about Asheville and this place and the Western North Carolina region is the mountains that just, you know, when I lived in Atlanta and I met my husband before I dragged him back here, I was always like, you know, I can't stay here forever. Right. Like this too much pavement at these buildings. I can't deal with it. And he was like, yeah, whatever. I'll take you to the mountains one day. I'll get you back. And then he moves here and he's like, I see why you want to be here. It just feels different, you know? And so like, I just feel like I can exhale when I'm at home in the mountains, you know, in a way that I can't elsewhere. So when it's not the mountains being the primary thing that I love the people, you know, we just have phenomenal people here. And yeah, I feel so lucky to write for them and interact with them and know a lot of them. So yeah, we just got good people here.
Hear, hear. Mountains and people. Put it on a bumper sticker. I love it. Is there any part of your story that we might have scooted past that you would want to just kind of shout out here in the I call this the cheap seats of the episode. If people made it this far, they care. What have we missed?
Let's see. I didn't get to mention this, but a lot of my coworkers really love this. I'm a former North Carolina powerlifter.
Hey now.
I don't know if I still have 9 records, but I am a record holder for powerlifting in the state of North Carolina. And I love doing active stuff and strong arming people and moving furniture.
What a fun bit of trivia. You might have added a new segment to the Making It an Asheville podcast. Do you currently train? Is that a part of your life today still? Are you lifting up heavy things?
I do. I haven't competed in a while. And I want to get back into that, but I have since the beginning of this year, I've started going back to the gym, and that's been incredible for my mental health and also good for, you know, my elbow grease efforts around the house. Sure. And, you know, youngin' wrangling and other things. So yeah, so I definitely love to throw down in the weight room still.
I'm so glad that I asked what else was hanging out there that we hadn't discussed. Thank you. I look forward to chatting with you about that, and not on the podcast. I don't know if that's got what kind of legs podcast it has, but this was absolutely lovely and wonderful. And I'm speaking for Sarah and I, but I feel privileged that we live in a town that has 6 a.m. that has AVL Today. Like it's a particular type of media. It's a particular type of relationship, and it is doing. You know, I feel funny when people say, you know, thank you to us for this podcast, and I'm like, we're not even really like it is great. I love this, and I love that you're thanking me, but like, we're not even close to what AVL Today is doing. Like, it is just so much work. I can't imagine, and the what it brings to the community is very, very real. What it's afforded Sarah and I in our short time here, 2 years, has been huge, both before a pandemic when we were trying new stuff all the time, and during a pandemic when we weren't sure what was able to try. So thank you for being our inbox friend for as long as we've been here.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my pleasure. And I think that what y'all do is phenomenal.